Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. Excuse this redness going on right here. My skin is just really sensitive, and if I like scratch or anything, it's just red. You know, it's that pale, pasty, white skin, you guys. Ugh. Anyway, okay, so in today's video, we're talking about if gaining muscle and losing fat is possible. So in other words, is body recomping actually possible? And the answer is absolutely yes. However, we do have some caveats to body recomping itself. And as a shorter woman, there may be some recommendations that are skewed for our body type. So someone who is maybe 5'5" and under. So let's get into it. Let's talk about what a body recomp is. It is the idea of simultaneously building muscle and losing fat, not exactly weight. A lot of people will get this confused, and while body weight and body fat can drop simultaneously for a period of time, they have a downward correlation or an upward correlation, depending. At some point, they start to diverge. So you can be dropping in body weight and not necessarily actually be dropping in body fat. That is because you are losing fluid retention, bone density, muscle mass. Also, muscle weighs more than fat and it is more dense. So if I have muscle tissue and fatty, if I have muscle tissue and fatty tissue, both of these are the same weight. This fatty tissue takes up more space. It takes up more room. However, this muscle tissue over here is more dense and it weighs more, but it takes up less space. That is exactly why whenever you are trying to lose body fat and you are building muscle, your weight won't change as much because you are displacing some of that weight loss through muscle gain. So to reiterate this, I lost some weight after moving from Miami to New York City, in large because I stopped binge drinking. There's also a huge difference in how you live. Obviously in Miami, you're still in cars driving around everywhere, and in New York City, you are walking everywhere. So essentially I created a calorie deficit for myself until, of course, eventually I plateaued because my body adapted to everything I was doing, and then I was just stuck at my new body weight. I was slimmer and smaller compared to what I looked like in Miami, but I wasn't more lean and I wasn't more toned, and I didn't have like much of a figure, let's say. So compare this to my physique in recent years. I weigh far more than I did in that skinny fat photo, except I look leaner. I don't look nearly as soft. I have more definition. I have more of a waist, and I have more curves. I have more muscle definition overall. I have also had a boob job, you guys, so that is where the chest came from. Ladies, you can't grow your boobs unless you are pregnant. Anyway, so at this new point in time, I started following a program by a trained professional, you guys, someone with a lot of experience. Essentially, after 6 months to a year, I body recomped. So skinny fat versus resistance training, focusing on protein intake and making sure I wasn't under eating. These are the results. So let's talk about who can actually body recomp. Honestly, anybody can body recomp. If you're a beginner, intermediate, or even seasoned lifters can absolutely experience a body recomp. However, the more seasoned lifter you become, the harder it is to put on muscle mass, and the harder it becomes to actually visibly see like a body recomp. It takes a lot longer to do that. If you are new to lifting, you are going to experience the biggest results from a body recomp. This is essentially just because your body has so much room to build muscle, and it can create muscle tissue out of fatty tissue. Because the stimulus to grow muscle is so strong, your body is like, whoa, what do I do? What do I need to do? And it's going to partition some of that fatty tissue to help build muscle mass to support your resistance training efforts. So you pretty much need to just start implementing some sort of resistance training following a program made by someone who's smart and has experience, etc. Lifting weights anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week is going to be really great. Be consistent and you'll see progress in a few months. So with new trainees, you don't need perfect technique to start seeing results, and you don't need to be hitting mechanical failure even in your exercises to see results. So in this paper that was published, they found that new trainees could be as far as 4 repetitions away from mechanical failure and still grow muscle. As you start to get more advanced, you need to hover a little bit closer to that mechanical failure to see results. Mechanical failure literally means if I'm doing a bicep curl and I'm curling, at some point I literally cannot lift my arm up anymore. That is mechanical failure. Another caveat to this is your repetition range is really important. You need to be within 0 to 4 reps of failure with a repetition range of somewhere around 6 to 30 repetitions. If you are hitting failure within that rep range for the exercise you chose, you are good. If you are not hitting failure on an exercise until rep 40, rep 46, rep 50, rep 60, then you are no longer training for muscle size. You are training your muscles for endurance, and that is different. That is not building muscle tissue. Again, back to like Pilates and yoga, whenever you're doing arms like this and you're doing it for 60 seconds, you may very much feel the burn and feel intensity, and at some point maybe you will hit failure, but the repetitions you're performing this exercise at are way too high. You're not actually stimulating any sort of muscle growth. Also, this exercise for your shoulders just happens to be really poor range of motion, and that is something else to consider in your workouts. You want full range of motion for your joints and for your muscles in order for the exercise to be effective. So this isn't that effective to growing bigger shoulders. This is why relying on Pilates and yoga to tone up and lose fat aren't going to work for the majority of you. If you are very new to exercise, you have a really sedentary lifestyle, and going to these classes gets you to move more, then that is a situation where you might see some results. By the way, I'm not knocking yoga or Pilates. One of the reasons I fell in love with exercise to begin with was yoga, and I still has a special place in my heart. It's just not going to get you lean and toned the way a lot of you think it is. Make a body comp a little bit more clear for you guys. Let's say that I have 2 people who are both starting out at the exact same body fat percentage and weight, and they are on a weight loss journey. They want to lean out. They want to lose body fat. Both of them don't have experience resistance training. So I'm going to put person A on a plan where they are doing a lot of cardio and they are in a modest calorie restriction. I'm going to put person B on a plan where they are resistance training with a moderate calorie restriction. Over time, let's say after 3 months or so, person A with the deficit from cardio and calories, they will lose more weight, but they will not look as lean or as toned. This is because there's no muscle mass underneath the fat that they lost. They may be a smaller version of themselves, but they're still going to look soft. Think exactly of my photo that I showed you guys a little bit earlier. Person B, who followed a resistance training program and a moderate calorie restriction, person B may not have lost as much weight on the scale, but they are going to look a lot more toned. That is because they focused on creating muscle tissue while they were leaning out, and they have a higher loss of their weight from body fat. At the end of the day, you guys don't want to just lose weight on the scale if it doesn't bring you that fit look. This brings me to my next topic. A lot of people think that a body recomp excludes nutrition, And that is totally incorrect. What I mean is that some people will think a body recomp will have major success even if you eat the exact same way you were eating before. Body recomp simply means building muscle and losing fat simultaneously. You can absolutely use your nutrition to help with this process. So this choice will depend on the following. 1, what your starting body fat percentages are. 2, how many calories you are currently eating in a day to maintain your weight. 3, your resistance training experience. And 4, your protein intake. I also want to make a note that when people have more fatty tissue on their frame, that is actually more protective of lean muscle mass. In other words, this person could implement a calorie deficit and grow muscle mass and maintain muscle mass pretty darn well. This person can implement a calorie deficit and start resistance training and experience noob gains and get really good results. However, the less fatty tissue you have, that inherently means it's less protective of lean tissue. So if you are pretty lean already or you're skinny fat like I was, then you might not actually want to include a calorie deficit while you are implementing resistance training. Let's get into more details of this. You need to look at your metabolism and notice the calories you are currently eating in a day to maintain your weight. That is the first place you should start. As a shorter woman, our BMRs tend to be a lot lower than our taller counterparts. That is because we are literally smaller. The size of the human directly affects how much food that human needs to eat in a day. So smaller person, we have smaller organs, we have smaller skeletal muscle, we have smaller bone density, we have smaller connective tissue, less fluid. All of those things correlates to a smaller BMR, which in turn correlates to a lower calorie intake. So essentially a smaller woman could already need far less calories than our taller counterparts. You also want to consider diet culture. Are you always trying to diet on 1200 calories? Again, keeping your calorie intake low. Or do you have a busy job which keeps you from eating a lot throughout the day, keeps your calories low? Or maybe you have like ADHD and you forget to eat throughout the day, and that also keeps your calories low. All of these things are affecting your metabolism and affect where you should be starting. For example, whenever I first started tracking my calories, I was only eating 1500 to 1600 calories in a day. My light source died, you guys, so you guys get now the ugly view of the wall. Anyway, so if I wanted to diet from that place, I would have had to implement a 1100 to 1200 calorie diet in order to lose body fat at the same time. It's simply uber restrictive, and this is where a lot of you ladies are stuck, is you're constantly trying to diet and trying to take out your calories, yet you're doing it in a way that makes it inherently unsustainable. If you are in this boat, you may not want to drop your calories at all. You may start with eating the same amount of calories you currently are and starting your resistance training program 2 to 4 times a week, focusing on your protein intake. You should aim for